Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. Go get 'em, guys.
Welcome back, Giants. Oh, sorry. Force a habit, Dan. Go on. Dan?
Is he froze or is he that pissed off?
Excuse me. Welcome back, Giants fans. See that? Yeah. Hey, all. Technical issues. Just putting out there. Welcome back. Here we go. I'm back in the room. Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big UK and Ireland podcast. Proudly, as always, in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, it's okay to talk. This time we are 75% British, 25% Irish, but always absolutely 100% Giants. I'm back. I'm back, baby. It's been a whole month since I've been on, and I'm buzzing to be back. So really looking forward to tonight. Obviously, we've got alongside Shane, Kev, and producer Craig. It's a full house to as we follow on from last week's epic episode, where Craig knocked it out of the park. Had guests galore, and discussed a few free agency moves as well, which we'll get into any minute now. And we've got a lot of things to discuss tonight. But yeah, well done for the last few weeks, mate. You've done a stellar job.
I'm not sure if Keith is referencing me or you there.
Me, probably. I'm now the intern. I've been demoted. I love it. How are we doing, boys? All right?
Yeah, not bad. Obviously, looking forward to talking about some of the transactions that happened last week, looking towards the draft. And obviously, Kevin and Craig are back again. It's great to have a guest on this week as well.
Oh, the guest host this week. That is just, there's no need for that. That's such a low blow there. No, it's good to have you back, Dan. It's good to have all four of us back on. I mean, the listeners, the viewers, in for a bit of a treat now with all four of us here this evening. But, let's crack on and start talking about the new look football Giants.
Yes, there's been so much that's happened over the last 2 weeks, and there's going to be way too much really to go into. So this could be a long one.
It could well be. We've got a lot to get into, like we said, sort of that's happened over the last couple of weeks. We've all got our opinions, which I'm sure we'll voice quite loudly this evening. And there's one main topic we're going to talk about coming up any minute now. But I'm just glad to be back. It's been a long month not being on. But as I said, Craig, you've done a stellar job, mate, filling in for me. And boys, when you've been on as well, you've done a great job. The episodes, I've listened to all of them, and they've been really good. So I've enjoyed it, and it's kept me going. It's given me that sort of little teaser, little taste of the podcast that I've missed. So yeah, looking forward to this evening. Before we get on, I'll do a huge shout out to the Revival guys from last week for dropping on, and to Brian and Jamie as well for helping Craig round out the show. Like I said, it was a great watch. So thank you very much for coming on. As usual, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to throw any questions in there too. You can check out all of our social media platforms and our merch store. Follow the links in the description and give us a big thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, or even feel free to share amongst your friends and family as well on the platform of your choice. Now, before we get going, producer Craig brought something to our attention yesterday. Tomorrow marks the 3rd anniversary of our first ever episode of this very podcast. Since then, we've added a producer. We've become fantastic mates, and not a day goes by where we don't chat on WhatsApp. So, boys, congrats to us. Here's to 2024 being our biggest year yet.
Amen.
Round of applause to us. Anyway, now that's out of the way. I happened to notice that producer Craig's got a different jersey on the wall behind him tonight. I wonder why that is. There's only really one place we can start off. There's only really one place we can start off tonight. Kev, over to you.
Well, we've got to start with 2-6, I think, haven't we, Mr. Saquon Barkley? Well, where do we start with this one? I mean, he was like to hit free agent. He was like to hit the free agent market, and within a few hours, the unthinkable happened. Saquon Barkley agreed to terms with NFC East rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, and will now return to the Meadowlands twice a year in Eagles green. Now, as expected, Giants fans, us included, were up in arms over the move. However, it won't matter to Saquon, who got above the franchise tag number and his new 3-year, $37.75 million contract that includes $26 million getting guaranteed. Now, I kind of had mixed feelings about this to begin with, and I kind of settled down on where I am now. But I want to know what your boys' initial reaction was, and how are you feeling now about this move? I'll start with you, Shane.
Couldn't have gone to anyone else first, no.
Oh no.
Do I have to comment? I suppose that's the point of the podcast. Got no choice. I'm just going to come back to you very quickly, Kev. Is this how it feels? Does it get any easier after losing J-Love last year? Like, does it get any easier?
No.
Fucking brilliant.
No, it hurts just as much.
So I've kind of got sort of a split opinion on it. Obviously, from a Saquon point of view, I get it. He wanted paying. It clearly didn't sit well with him last year, getting tagged, not getting his extension. So I can, from that point of view, I can understand why he's gone to Philly. Obviously, he went to Penn State, so it's closer to home for him, essentially. And I kind of get it that, he's going to get 2 opportunities a year to stick it to the Giants. So from that perspective, I kind of get it. Now the rant. Don't chat shit and lie about wanting to be a Giant for life and then go and join the fucking scummy Eagles. Do you know what I mean? Like, you had a chance to join Houston. You had CJ giving you a call. You could have gone, yeah, CJ, I'll come and play in Houston. It's nice weather. I don't have to play the Giants. I wanted to be a Giant for life, but that wasn't possible. So, I'll show a little bit of respect. But he kind of didn't. So in one on the other side of it, it feels like he stuck 2 fingers up to, the Giants organisation, the Giants fans. Maybe not so much to his teammates, but I just when you come out and say I want to be a Giant for life, if you can't be a Giant for life, that's cool. Don't join the fucking enemy. Like, where does that make good sense? So, like, kind of from a Giants fan perspective, that's what annoyed me. But then I suppose if you look at the bigger picture and the moves that we did later on in the day, which we'll come on to shortly, it kind of makes sense. And on one hand, I am glad the Giants didn't pay the money that the Eagles have paid. Because the money went elsewhere for us, and you kind of can't knock Joe Shane really. He obviously had a number in mind that he was willing to go to, and from what I understand, I don't think Saquon ever went back to the Giants and said, "This is the offer that I've had from Philly." So there's obviously, I think he'll always have a place in his heart for New York. So obviously it's where he drafted, and things didn't quite pan out the way that he probably wanted them to. But, it is what it is. It's done now. And, hopefully our front four and Bobby O are going to smash the fuck out of him twice a week. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, we certainly know where you stand now. Well, what about you, Dan? How did you feel when the news initially came in, and how are you feeling about it now?
Initially, I think the word rage comes to mind. It just completely dumbfounded me and took me by surprise. I don't think I ever expected him to go to Philadelphia, even though there was plenty of chatter about it. Like the fact that he said he wanted to be a Giant for life, this and this. It just went, it went against everything you would expect from a Giants player. Of all the teams he could have chosen, he decided to choose the goddamn Eagles. And, you know, yeah, money talks. It's a business. We get that. But I'm sorry, you just don't do it. Like Steve said, it's almost as bad as when Curtis David joined them lot up the road. Imagine Cristiano Ronaldo signing for Liverpool. It wouldn't happen. You know, imagine, Craig, imagine like the likes of Lucas Radebe signing for Man United. It wouldn't happen.
Rooney going to Man City.
I know he'd go to City for the money, but it just doesn't. These things don't happen. You don't go
Scott
to like,
Brown going to Rangers.
Yeah, there we go. Chris Brunt, I think he's a West Brom legend, right, Shane? Chris Brunt going to those people down the road that you don't mention. It just does.
Yes,
not
Kieran,
happen.
he is.
And,
yes, he is. Oh my God! Don't start me on that one.
And the fact that it has happened is just, for all Giants fans, it's gutting. I get it, but at the same time, I mean, 2-6. I hope you're happy in Philly. Congrats on your money. Congrats on getting the contract you wanted, and how maybe even congrats on getting a ring, because the Eagles are looking strong. But there's only one word for you now, my friend, and that's Judas. So, Judas, you're dead to me.
I was waiting.
So, Craig, so Craig, were your feelings as strong as the boys when it first happened, and have those feelings calmed down a little bit now?
Yeah, and I don't think I'll get into it in a second. First of all, hi Carl, first time listening. Big hello for Long Island, New York. Appreciate that, mate. Really do appreciate anyone who's tuning in. 50 live viewers at the moment, so we
and he's a Yankees fan too. Good lad.
Yeah. Right. So on to Saquon. I made my feelings clear last week about it and how much I hated it. The Instagram post that he put up with him in the Giants uniform that then turns into green made me feel physically sick. The video that he's put up today, is another one of those ones that just kind of feels like the Eagles sticking the knife in, where he's saying his daughter turned around and says, "Does that mean we can win now?" Like there's no need for it. That's the Eagles social media team as well. But you know that Saquon's in on it as well. Like he's not going to do it if they ask him, he could quite easily say, "You know what, that's a bit much for me." But like the other, it
feels like they're pandering to the fans a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're trying to stoke the fire, aren't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, it just leaves a sour taste. But my biggest frustration and the thing that pisses me off the most is probably the fact that, and once we put this to bed now, that's it. That's it for talk on Saquon. Do we really need every single Giants media outlet, fan, journalist retweeting every little video that he does now? Like, he's gone, put it to bed. That's what we're going to do now.
I mean, I'm 100% with you. And when it happened, I still in a state of shock, I think. When it happened, I was thinking that I just never thought it would happen. There was talk, like Dan said, about it happening. I just never thought that it would actually happen. And when it did, I was so taken back, because the money was very similar, if not a little bit less, to what he was offered in season, the previous season, that he knocked back, thinking he could go out and get a really, really big Christian McCaffrey pay deal. No, he didn't get that. Giants reevaluated, and then they're obviously going down a different road when it comes to positional value, like running back and safeties and stuff like that. So, I think we're done now. I think, it's time to move on. He was a good player for us, not a great player. I don't think he'll be in the Ring of Honor. I don't think anything like that with him. He wasn't on a successful team. So some may say that he could be dead to us. And so I'll just go on. So Tiki Barber, right? Tiki Barber on his show, WFAN, said with a smile, "He's dead to us now. He's dead to us. You're dead to us, Saquon. Good luck. You're dead to me." Now, Saquon failed to see the funny side in this, and he replied on X. He at Tiki Barber, lol, you're up the prime example of loyalty to a team. I got a deal I wanted, secured more guaranteed money, which wasn't given to me before. So if fans are going to hate me for that, so be it. But I never turned my back on my teammates and always had theirs. following it up with Tiki Barber, you're a hater. You've been a hater since I got to New York, and all the dead to me talk. Don't smile in my face when you see me. Barber would later respond with, I don't even know what he's talking about. I've done nothing but support Saquon Barkley. I'm not sure what he's talking about. So, gentlemen, what do you make of this spat? The video certainly makes it look like it was in jest. And this was a bit of an uncharacteristic outburst from Saquon. What are your thoughts on the back and forth? I'll start with you, Dan.
I mean, well, the one thing Barber's got over Saquon is that he was a Giant for life.
Very true. Very true.
And I mean, let's face it, Barkley is dead to me as well. Tiki's a Giants legend. His numbers speak for themselves, but for Judas to turn around and call Tiki a hater is uncalled for. He supported him through his entire career at the Giants. And just like any other Giants analysts, he's going to criticise Judas for making that move. But for Judas to bite back, which in my opinion was totally uncalled for, and it just shows that he doesn't really care. He didn't really care about the history of the team, and he just wants to move on and get on with his career and earn his money. That's my opinion.
Craig, what do you think? Do you think it was a bit childish, or do you think Saquon had some right to say what he said? Or do you think this kind of shows the way Saquon's gone about his business, that he's more of about NFL and me type of guy, and not about an actual team? What's your thoughts?
Saquon's pulling us with the old John Cena heel turn, isn't he?
Love that reference. Love it.
The way that he's doing. Saquon always kind of said that he wanted to, there's always been that plan of the New York media side of things. Like after his career's done, he wants to go into media and all of that. And I think a lot of the people in New York media know the best way to do that is not to piss off New York. And he's kind of gone about it the wrong way. And what he said has kind of been thrown straight back at him, because Tiki had receipts, didn't he, with pictures and videos and stuff like that. So Tiki's kind of gone, talk to me about that, and that's the end of it. I mean, yeah, again, I covered it last week with the boys, so I don't want to go too much into it, but it's uncharacteristic is definitely the right word, I think, especially from the Saquon that we saw in New York.
So I'll go to you, Shane. Do you think the Saquon we saw in New York was a facade, and he really is this type of petty character, or do you think that just the whole thing has just riled him up a bit and he sort of lashed out?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say it's the latter. And in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't even see the video when he sent his tweets out. Someone's just gone to him, have you heard what Tiki said? He's gone, no. Someone's told him, not knowing the context behind it, not seeing the video, and he's just sort of like, seen a little bit of red mist maybe and just sent a few tweets out. But, it is what it is. It's a little bit of banter. If you can't take it, that's on him. Talking of banter, I mean, obviously we love football chants here in England, and I hope when we play Philly, there's at least 60,000-70,000 Giants fans chanting "There's only one greedy bastard," because that's 100% the chant I put.
Love it.
Everyone knows you've sang that chant to at least one footballer who left your club for another club for more money, and you start chanting "There's only one greedy bastard." There's also other chants as well that I'm not going to repeat because they're a little bit close to the edge.
Bit of blue. Bit blue.
I mean, we chanted for him at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we'll certainly chant against him next time he's on the playing against us.
Maybe if we all meet up and we record ourselves chanting "There's only one greedy bastard," I wonder if he'll like that one on Twitter like he did last time.
There's only one way to find out.
I mean, when we have a meetup, surely we have to get a chant going and get it on the socials.
100%. We'll get it.
It's on. Shane, who's the other big name to leave on the opening day of free agency?
Yeah, so just a quick one as well. If any listeners have got any ideas for chants, bang them in the chat, and we'll put them up on screen. We'll get Craig to put them up later on in the show. So if you've got any ideas for chants at Saquon, let's hear them, and we'll see what we can do. But moving on to the other free agent.
Shane's
Judas,
just chosen
Judas,
violence today.
Judas.
Yeah. I'm literally like I'm doing it now. That's it.
Like Daniel Jeremiah and his mock, he's just choosing chaos.
Yeah, I'll always have a bit of love for him because of like Penn State link, but in terms of the Giants, nah. Let's just go all in on him. Let's just destroy him. It obviously gets in his head, so we need to get in his head before that play us.
So here's a quick question then. Like, obviously, no one wants anyone injured, of course.
Nah.
But would you be happy? Would you be happy if he just didn't have the rushing yards that he's predicting that he's going to get? Like, if he just went there and just wasn't the same player, I think we'd all be happy with that, wouldn't we? If he was just very, very unproductive.
Yeah, definitely. If he goes and averages 3.5 yards per carry over a season, 4 or 5 touchdowns, that'll do me. That's enough satisfaction for me.
We've had our first chance.
Oh,
Dan, do you want to read that one out for the listeners?
gladly. Saquon. I mean, first of all, Steve, what is a tatter? Or Shane, what is a tatter?
I'll be
I
in
don't know,
chat.
no idea. Okay, so Saquon is a tatter. He wears a tatter's hat. He plays for Philadelphia, and he is I'm going to guess with effing twat.
Yeah, that's it. What's on?
There we go.
Hey.
I like that one. I'm all on board with that. we could just go with the classic Judas. I mean, that's kind of simple, I know, but let's face it, he is. All right, yeah. So Xavier McKinney, Shane.
Yeah, so the other player that we lost last week, that we kind of all hoped we would retain because he was an important player, especially last year when he played all snaps. That was Xavier McKinney. He's gone to Green Bay. He was a team captain, a little bit like the guy we've just spoken about, and he agreed to a 4-year, $68 million deal, getting above the rumoured $16 million a year average that he was after. McKinney leaves the Giants having played in 49 of 67 regular season games. In that time, he recorded 3,154 defensive snaps with 222 tackles. He had 2 sacks, 14 hurries, and 11 pass breakups. 3 forced fumbles and a total of 9 interceptions. He'd been targeted 140 times during his Giants career, allowing 93 catches at a rate of 66%. Obviously, it was a much less controversial move compared to the one that the previous player had that we spoke about. It's a clear sign from Joel Shane that he won't overvalue what he considers the less important positions. So what were your thoughts on the McKinney contract and him leaving for Green Bay, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I can completely see it. And he did come back to the Giants and said, look, this is what I've been offered. Like, can you match it? If you match it, I'll come back. And they just were not prepared to go there, which I completely understand. I mean, I think Joe Sheehan and Brian Dable, they were there at the Bills when Brandon Beane was sort of like going through his model of building a team. And like some of the things he looks at or the Bills have tried to do, is devaluing positions like running back and safety, spending your resources on premium positions like edge rusher, cornerback, offensive line, tackles, be a quarterback-centric offense. They want to move the ball through the quarterback, and they want the running game to assist that, but they want to actually, get the ball in the QB's hands or legs, if needs be, and run the offense through that. Now, you can, we haven't really got that quarterback at the moment, but you kind of seen from what they've been doing that trading for Brian Burns. Do you know what I mean? Like investing in tackle position, first round pick on a cornerback last year. You kind of see that that's the way they want to go now. So I wanted McKinney back because I think he's a fantastic player, but I'm also pleased that they sort of stuck to their price range and said, we won't go over that and overpay for a position that we don't value as highly as some others.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just Sam has just put a thing saying, with McKinney, he always plays his best when it didn't matter. First half of the season, he was trash. Once we're out of contention, played really well, which helped no one. And not last season, season before, obviously he was out for the most important part of the season, really, with the lead up to the playoffs, with his ATV incident, and potentially could be seen as still as a controversial figure. I know that they didn't obviously document any wages when that ATV incident happened, but they could have quite easily and could have quite easily still had the thought process of, can we really rely on this guy? Do we really want the kind of hassle that is going to come about to dock him wages when we could get rid of him? And at the end, I do think they would have bought him back. I just think, the market was a little too rich. I mean, we're going to get onto who we signed at safety earlier. There is only one player that we have so far, and it's not been very much at all. In fact, I think it was a vet minimum deal. So I think that definitely shows how they value it. But there's not a lot he could have done in the first 2 years with the roster. Last year was a little patchwork because of cap management, and the same with the year before when he came in, and now we're really starting to see what Joe Shane can do, and obviously there's going to be a lot on his head, and I think this is his last sort of final swing to make it right before potentially, with the NFL being such a short-term memory kind of league these days with owners, he's got to get it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that he wasn't tagged initially, but then looking at the money he's got in Green Bay, we were never going to pay that money, like you rightly said. I was disappointed that he left, but I get it. Again, it's money, it's a business. He wants that money that he feels he deserves, and he's got it in Green Bay. So good luck to him in Green Bay. It would have been nice to keep him around, being one of the defensive leaders. He played every single snap last season, so that says a lot. And now, we are sort of significantly weaker at the position, but there's obviously a reason that Shane hasn't wanted to pay him the money he was wanting, and that money needs to go elsewhere on the team. So I've got no hard feelings against X. I think good luck to him, and I hope his career is successful in Green Bay. There was a few other players that have obviously left over the last couple of weeks. Mark Lewinsky was cut as well. Tyra Taylor went to the Jets as a backup for A-Rod. A'Shawn Robinson signed with the Panthers to a rather large contract, if my memory serves me right. And Ben Bredesen went to Tampa Bay to be on the offensive line in front of their new multi-million-dollar quarterback, Baker Mayfield. I will say the A'Shawn Robinson one, I was disappointed that we didn't keep him around as well. But again, money talks. Didn't have the money to pay him. I get it. But I liked A'Shawn when he came in. He did a good job last season when Leonard Williams left. So I was a bit disappointed to see him go. But we have brought somebody else in on the defensive line, I suppose you would say, to not necessarily replace him, but a player that's got quite a big reputation coming in, and it's obviously it was a big deal that came in as well. It may not have been the first deal, but it was definitely the biggest one of the day. We traded our 2024 second round 39th overall pick and a 2025 fifth round pick for Brian Burns with the Carolina Panthers. He was a 16th overall pick in 2019 and was franchise tagged by the Panthers on the 5th of March, despite him and the team being at loggerheads over a contract negotiation. Negotiations never progressed. The trade was agreed with the Giants, and we swiftly signed him to a new 5-year deal. $150 million 5-year contract of $87.5 million of that fully guaranteed. He now joins what is potentially looking like a formidable defensive front, and will line up on the opposite side of Kayvon Thibodeau, who will benefit massively from this deal. In his 5-year career to date, he's had 46 sacks, 53 quarterback hits, 144 hurries, 134 tackles, 9 batted passes, 8 forced fumbles. And last season, he appeared in all but one game, missing week 10 against the Bears with a concussion. He recorded 40 pressures, 8 sacks, a forced fumble, recovered a fumble, and 16 tackles for loss. This guy is a monster. According to Next Gen Stats, he generated 148 quick pressures, which is a pressure that occur in less than 2.5 seconds from the snap since 2019. And there are only 3 players that have more than that in the period, and that's Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald, who is now retired, and TJ Watt. Which in itself, that's putting him in the top 4 of the top 4 pass rushers in the league in terms of quick pressures, and he's got very, very esteemed company around him. Looking further into the contract as well, he'll count for $23.5 million against the cap this season, 27.75 next season, and 28.75 in 2026. After that, the Giants have got a potential out, which will count again for $10 million in dead money, but will free up 20.5. It's a huge contract. It's big money, but big players deserve to get paid big money, and Brian Burns is definitely a big player, even though he's going to be wearing the number 0.
Just quickly on the contract.
Zero's
the
not a number.
contracts. Yeah, zero's not. Just quickly, the contract. The contract's a little bit different, actually. They kind of reworked the contract. So he's actually in this year he will only count for $15.5 million against the cap, and then 29.75, and then 30.75, 32.5, and 32.5. So they've actually reworked it to create an extra $8 million in cap room this year. Just a little heads up. But then a player of this quality, like, you won't mind him counting against, like, it was like 30 million or 29 million against the cap in 2 or 3 years' time. You don't mind him counting 32 million against the cap, because cap's going to obviously go up again, and it frees up a lot of money this year.
Exactly that. Obviously, the cap is going up every year, and it makes sense to load more money into years in the future. So pretty shrewd move there by Joe Shane, I think. Craig mentioned last week the Giants haven't had a defensive tandem both record over 10 sacks since Tuck and Osi in 2010. So back at you, Craig. Then, does it feel like the best duo since then? In him and Thibodeau?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really does. We touched on it. We touched on it last week about the acquisition of Olivier Vernon, who really didn't do a lot. Around the time that, or sort of just after, 2010, just after 2010, when that last was recorded. Tuck did have JPP next to him for a while. You could probably say that those two were close to maybe the Tuck and Osi level, even though JPP was super raw back then.
And he blew his hand off.
Yeah, well, he blew his hand off after that, but yes, he did blow his hand off as well. I think what Holty said, Aziz will benefit as well because he won't play that many snaps, allows him to be more explosive. I think that's the understated thing here, is that yes, we've got 2 formidable people who really can attack the passer, as starting players, but in the rotation, when you've got someone as like Aziz, and there are plenty of nice edge rushers coming up in this year's draft if we decide to take a little cheeky dip in there as well for something, even at the depth piece, which I think is something that Shane and Kev will get into on next week's episode. But yeah, there's plenty to be happy about here.
Shane, how's it looking for you?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like, this kind of, the rumour come out around about 24, 36 hours before the deal was kind of made. And initially I just thought, nah, that ain't going to happen. Like, you look at the Panthers last year turned down 2 firsts and a second from the Rams. So when I heard that, we were potentially in talks to get Brian Burns, I was like, oh, they're going to want number 6 overall. I'm not willing to do that. So, I've kind of criticised Joe Shane at times. I've said, like, I don't think he's done an absolutely amazing job. I think he's made some mistakes. But the one thing I will turn and say is, when it comes to getting trades, he seems to knock it out of the park, to be fair. I mean, okay, the Darren Waller one hasn't quite worked out, but for a third round pick, and I think it was a late third as well, it was worth the risk, in my opinion. And, to get a guy like Brian Burns for a second and a fifth next year, and I think they've had a swap of fifths this year as well, like that's a bargain. That's an A+ trade, in my opinion. And if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm absolutely fuming with that trade for giving him up for so cheap. And in regards to like the tackler, like, I'm going to go, like, I'll call it out now, don't care. Thibodeau and Burns will combine for 25 plus sacks next year.
Oh, some bold prediction.
I was getting straight in there. I just think that, I mean, Thibodeau had, was it 12 and a half this year or something like that, 13 this year? And, I know Burns' production was a little bit lower last year, but I mean, like, you talk about sexy football, the way that man bursts off that line. I mean, there was a video that me and Craig had shared in our group chat last week. I think, was it Baldy that had put it on Twitter? And literally just, I can't remember who it was against, but oh man, I've never seen a man move so quick in my life. Like, the way he just ball rushed that tackle. Then I was watching like highlights of him blowing up a jet sweep against Arizona, I think last season as well. Like, the guy's speed and burst is absolutely insane. And there was rumours that Gettleman tried to trade up for Burns in the
2019.
Yeah, 2019 draft. Unfortunately, we didn't get him when we got Dexter Lawrence. Well, now we got the pair of them. Like, I mean, talk about.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll talk about some more, but I've seen a mock draft literally just before we went on the air, and I said to the guys, it's got the Giants doing a trade back and taking Byron Murphy from Texas, and I was like, oh, if we have a front four of Murphy, Lawrence, Burns, and Tibbs, oh man. Ooh.
Does it make you feel all tingly, Shane?
Yeah, man, it's getting me going. It's getting me going.
But no, Kev, I mean, I know you just said about him, but what do you make of Brian Burns? Is he the real deal?
Oh, he's the real deal. He's such a good player. I mean, he was fantastic coming out of FSU in 2019. You said all the stats and numbers and stuff like that, and they're all excellent. But also, he played in such a bad Panthers team. Like he had no one opposite him to create pressure, so he was getting double teamed all the time. But like you can see from his film, his like Shane said, his speed, but his dip as well, the way he bends around and his spin move. Oh, his spin move is just pure filth.
Disgusting.
Oh, it's just class. I mean, so teams are going to have to make a decision, man. When you got Cave on one side, Dex in the middle, you got Brian Burns there. You can't double team all of them. Do you know what I mean? You've only got 5 offensive linemen. But I mean, so it's such a good move, and also just to say, one of his quotes, like Burns said this week, New York has a ton of young pieces. Looking down the line, I've got Dexter, Thibodeau, but they got dogs on the inside. They've got a dog behind them, and linebacker Bobo Kereke. There's a lot of talent on this team, and he's right. There's great core of talent on this team, and that front six, I think, is just phenomenal. And so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing them play against each other. And I think Shane's not too far off with his prediction because, like I said, you can't keep them both quiet all game.
I mean, Shane Burns can have a field day with his pass rush in 2024, isn't he? Because it's looking like it's going to be very, very tasty. And you know what? I would be very surprised if they don't total 25 sacks between them in the season, because those two together is a scary duo. Plus, then Dexter Lawrence as well in the middle. That front three, you're not messing around with that. The defensive front is looking very, very strong. So I'm looking forward to that. Watching them play on the field come September. Just exciting times for France defense, put it that way. Joe Shane has also looked externally to try and build up his roster and spent shrewdly to address problem areas for the Giants. Craig, who's up first?
Yep. So the first of the external signings was to shore up that offensive line. Porous, I think, is the easiest way you could describe it. We have agreed terms with ex-Packers guard John Runyan, who has signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with $17 million guaranteed. 6'4", 307 pounds. Runyan was a 6th-round pick out of Michigan in 2020. He appeared in 67 games, starting 50 of them. He is the son of John Runyan Sr., who played offensive tackle for the San Diego Chargers, the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans, and the Philadelphia Eagles, where he would start a rivalry with Giants legend Michael Strahan. In fact, Strahan has already welcomed Runyan Jr. to the Giants, saying, "I can't wait to see Runyan Sr. in a Giants jersey rooting on his son." Runyan has experience with both. Runyan has experience with both guards positions, playing 1,611 snaps at left guard, 1,709 snaps at right guard, including 1,006 snaps at right guard this past season. Across his 3,300-ish snaps in 4 years, he has only allowed 7 sacks, 12 QB hits, 45 hurries, and 8 penalties. He has a pass blocking efficiency of 97.9. If there is a slight weakness to his game, it's run blocking. As I said last week, there's a great video on X from @Gene Clemens, so GeneClemons, who just kind of breaks down his strengths and weaknesses, breaks down his struggles in the run blocking, but like I said, boils down to having good initial contact but not sustaining the block or displacing the defensive lineman. Kev, there was another one.
There was indeed. We went and signed Runyan and Eluemunor. I mean, Giants continued on the O-line. They signed the ex-Raiders player, a 29-year-old. They signed a 2-year deal, $14 million with the Giants, and he'll reunite with his former O-line coach for the past 4 or 5 years in Carmen Brasillo. Now, Eluemunor, who was born in London and moved to New Jersey at the age of 14, he is an Arsenal fan as well, so that I have to knock him for that. But he was a 5th-round pick by the Ravens out of Texas A&M in 2017. He spent 2 seasons in Baltimore before moving to New England for the 2019 and the 2020 season. He then worked under Brasillo, who was an assistant offensive line coach. He then moved to the Raiders, where he spent the last 3 years. And like Runyan, Eluemunor has played multiple positions on the offensive line. Despite only making 45 starts, he's clocked up 422 snaps at left tackle, 534 at right guard, and 1,861 at right tackle. So across his 2,800 snaps in 7 years, he's allowed 15 sacks, 12 QB hits, 54 hurries, and 20 penalties. Jermaine's homecoming seemingly has him pumped. I love this as well. Some of the tweets have come out have been absolutely phenomenal. One of them said, we woke up this morning and it's finally hit me that I get to play for the freaking Giants. Man, I'm so damn excited to put that beautiful blue helmet on. Can't wait. He's one of those players as well that's kind of ascended. So although those stats I've just said don't sort of jump out at you, he has played his better ball the last few years. But the thing to keep an eye on here with the Giants deciding to sign Eluemunor is how they will use him. Will he start at right tackle with Evan Neal moving to guard? Will he just be a swing tackle, pushing Neal for the starting spot, and then someone else starting at the guard spot? Or will he play guard as the Giants allow Neal to continue a tackle, albeit on a very, very short leash? I'll start with you, Shane. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we're going to go into the training camp and the start of the season with Evan Neal at right tackle. I think that, obviously we took him 7th overall. I don't think Joe Shane's ready to give up on him yet. I think it showed kind of badly on Joe Shane, to be honest, if they gave up on him now. So I think, this is, I know it seems like a little bit of deja vu because we said the same kind of thing last year, but I think this is make or break year for Evan Neal because, if you don't make it this year, you might not be in the league for much longer, to be honest. You might find yourself being a little bit of a journeyman and then you're out the league within 2 or 3 years. So, I think the plan will be for Evan Neal to play right tackle. I think Runyan's come out and said he doesn't mind where he plays at guard, but he prefers left guard, so it makes sense for him to slot in there. And obviously, you've got Eluemunor, kind of swing tackle, can play guard if need be as well. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. I would like to see at some point in the season Neil at left guard. It's his more natural position. I think he's better suited to playing guard and left guard where he started at Alabama, and then obviously at right tackle you can have Eluemunor, and then right guard you can have Runyan.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. What about your view, Dan? What do you think is the best way to start out in pre-season, and then how do you see it developing?
I mean, I can see Evan Neal being given another chance at right tackle. Absolutely. I think the fact that we did draft him 7th overall to slot in there on that side, you'd kind of be stupid not to keep him there and let him sort of prove that he's good enough. But if it's clear early on that it's not working, then maybe they will be switched around early on. Obviously, the fact that we paid Eluemunor fairly, handsomely. It's not huge money for an offensive tackle. It wouldn't surprise me to see him lined up on the outside and Neil moved inside. But we'll see. When training camp comes around, where they're looking at slotting Eluemunor in. But I can definitely see him being in there at guard to start off the season.
So Craig. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, Craig, I just wanted to get your views as well.
Yeah, the way that he's kind of put himself about on Twitter's kind of given him a bit of a cult following already. I think is probably the easiest way to put it. As long as we don't talk about his forehead, I think that's the rules now. Not allowed to talk about that. But just the way that he's talking and the way that he's kind of pushing himself doesn't sound like somebody who feels like he's going to be fighting for a job this off season. It kind of sounds like the sort of person who knows that he's starting. He's just where. And I had some pretty sort of nailed on thoughts about Eluemunor, but then when I was doing the sort of prep for the podcast and I looked at the fact that Runyan's got that 30 million deal, that seems like a hell of a lot of money to pay across 3 years to have him as a backup. So I would assume that it will be a bona fide kind of fight between Eluemunor and Neil in camp, and I don't feel like Joe Shane will have anything really to feel bad about. If Neil still plays, he still plays, regardless of where it is. If I'd rather that he held his hands up and said, "Look, it ain't working. Let's move him to guard. Put him next to AT. Up, put your arm around his shoulder, and just kind of let's find the man who was at Bama, as opposed to let's start him at right tackle, and let's, for God's sake, please not draft Michael Penix if we're going to keep him at right tackle." Because the last thing you want to do is go, "Oh, we've killed Michael Penix. Let's move. Let's move Evan. Let's maybe move Evan Neal to left guard because he's killed someone now."
For point of reference, Michael Penix is one of the draft prospects, and he's also a lefty in this draft.
He's a lefty.
It's a very good point. I mean, I'll flip the switch here. Dan, go to you first. Would you agree that the Giants are in a much better place with Runyan and Eluemunor, and obviously with the other additions that we're going to speak about shortly, than we were last year with Pugh, Glowinski, and Bredesen?
I think so. I mean, obviously Justin Pugh came in whilst he was experienced. He struggled initially when he came in, and then those struggles sort of carried on throughout the season as well. Glowinski and Bredesen both had poor years. Our offensive line, as you said earlier, was very, very porous. So I just cannot see that this offensive line being worse than our offensive line was last season. I think some of that does come down to coaching as well. With our new offensive line coach in Brasillo, he's got a good reputation. He's worked with Eluemunor before. He seems to know what he's doing and seems to command a decent O-line. So, I do think our line will be stronger this year. And I'm just on Eluemunor as well. I love the fact that he called up OC to ask if he could wear 72, because that just shows the sign of respect and shows a sign of what the guy is and who the guy is. That's one little thing I loved about him. But I think our O-line this year is stronger.
And what about you, Kev? We'll let Shane go last, unless Shane wants to jump in there for some reason.
The old line guru.
Don't forget the guru's here.
No.
No.
Right. While Shane gathers himself for this, I cannot wait for his guru analysis. I'll just give my 2 pence worth quickly. So the answer to the question is 100% yes. I mean, we're going to see, in my opinion, a starting 5 of Thomas, Runyan, JMS, Eluemunor, and Neil. Whatever way you want to throw them into the pot and bring them out again. Your left tackle is going to be Thomas. Your center is going to be JMS, and the other 3 we'll see where they come out. But I think those are definitely your starting 5. We've just got reports coming in that the Giants have brought in Matt Nelson, ex-Lions OT, offensive tackle, for a visit today. Now, this type of guy would only be coming in to be a swing tackle, which would suggest that Eluemunor isn't going to be a swing tackle, that he's going to be playing on this line. And he also said that in his interview with John Schmelk that, he's coming in to start, but he doesn't care where he starts. He said he'll start anywhere across the line. So that sort of leads me to believe that they will start with Neil at right tackle and Eluemunor at right guard, and then sort of see how they both go. But I think they will both get reps. They'll both get starting reps at right tackle. But yes, I mean, Runyan for me is one of those free agents that we looked at and we kind of aimed for a little bit higher. We aimed for sort of like a really, really good guard at around 10 million. But those good guards went for 17, 18, 19 million per year. And Runyan came in at that 10 million mark. Now, Runyan is by no means a slouch. I think he's a very, very good pass blocker. Needs a little bit of work in the run blocking, like you said in your analysis. But he's still very young in terms of offensive line. I think he's 26. He was just come off his rookie deal. I think he's got a lot to improve. I think he's got a lot of chance to improve, and I think he will. I think he's an above average player. And Eluemunor, I mean, Baldy did a breakdown of him. I think we saw some clips earlier on. He did a nice breakdown against the Chiefs, showing him going up against, arguably the best interior defensive lineman, Chris Jones, now that Aaron Donald is retired, and Karlaftis. And he just showed how well he played against those 2 very good players in the running game and also in the passing game. And also one of the things he did say as well that he has said in the past, he's a big believer that Eluemunor's play at right tackle at the last 2 seasons is the reason why Josh Jacobs ran for over 2,400 yards in the last 2 years. So, these are the type of players you want to bring in that will make your team better. And to be honest, getting Eluemunor at 14 million for 2 seasons is an absolute steal, in my opinion, for the type of tape he's put out there for the last 2 years. And maybe there's a little bit of a hometown discount there, and he really did want to play for the Giants. I'm not saying he's a fan, but I do think, playing for the Giants means something to him. It might not mean something to other people, but we've talked about that already. So I think it's 2 great signings. Will they make it the offensive line elite? No. Will it make it a lot better than last year? Hell yes. And that's what we're here for. We need to get that offensive line a lot better. And Carmen Brasillo, I mean, all I'm hearing is fantastic things about him. Saying that, he will make you a better player. If you take his coaching on the right way, you will become a better player. And look how he turned that Raiders line around. So, I'm very, very happy with where the offensive line is going, and it is definitely 100 times better than it was last year.
So, Shane, you're up last. Will you be happy if the line is serviceable because it means we don't have to talk about it as much?
I mean, that'd be quite ideal, to be honest with you. I'd love an episode where I don't talk about the O-line in the season because I felt like that's what I do. We're coming up to 3 years having this podcast going, and it feels like after every game it's been discussed in negative ways. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get excited about the O-line moves at the moment, and just for the simple reason is Patrick Amame, Nate Solder, Mark Lewinsky. These are free agent signings we've signed in the last few years that just didn't pan out. So, you know, the proof will be in the pudding, so to speak, once the season starts. You know, I do, you know, will echo what you guys have said about Eluemunor. He seems like a guy that genuinely cares and actually wants to be here. And more than anything else, I want him to succeed because the excitement and the positivity and the vibe that he brings purely over Twitter in text speak is like absolutely phenomenal. So, you know, I can only imagine, you know, he's just someone you want to see do well. You know, at the end of the day, we've said on this episode numerous times we don't want a top 5 O-line. Like, if we got one, it'd be great. We just want a top 12, top 16 O-line, something that is just enough to get you through. We're not expecting miracles with the O-line, but you know, definitely doing favours with him coming over here, with Carmen already being here as well. He's going to have a bit of an idea as to how he wants to play, how he likes his O-line to play, the stances they like to play, the stunts they're doing, etc. So, you know, I'm not going to say that it's, you know, vastly improved, because I feel like I fell into that trap numerous times over the last few years. Honestly, it again. I do think it will be interesting to see whether we do draft a guard in just over a month's time. You know, there's a couple that I've got my eye on that I wouldn't mind kind of being drafted. Obviously, we've lost that second round pick now, so it might be kind of day 3 where we try and just add a guard. But, you know, hopefully the guys come in and like I say, they give us that kind of top 12, top 16 O-line. That's all we ask for.
Yeah, I mean, top 16 is markedly better than what it was last year. So, I mean, you can't really complain about that. And I think the fact that, yeah, Brasillo's a decent coach and Bobby Johnson has gone to the Commanders says it all, really. So, you know, we're hopefully onto a good one with the O-line. Moving on then with Judas gone, and the Giants had the big hole in the running back slot. That was filled within a couple of hours by ex-Texan Devin Singletary. It was announced he was agreed terms on a 3-year, $16.5 million deal worth up to a maximum of 19.5. In our free agency wish list that we did a few weeks ago, Kev actually picked out Devin Singletary. And the only reason I didn't go for him was because I was assuming Judas would still be in the building. So, you know, there we go. But Devin Singletary, nice to pick up there, drafted in the 3rd round in 2019 by the Buffalo Bills, who had a certain Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator. During his 4 years in Buffalo, he started 56 games, recording just under 3,500 yards at 4.7 yards a carry, 13 fumbles with 19 rushing touchdowns, and he added over 1,100 yards through the air as well, with 4 touchdowns in those 4 years. Last season, he went to the Texans, started 17 games, recording just shy of 1,000 yards at a rate of 4.1 yards a carry, scoring 5 touchdowns, only fumbling once, and he was still sort of an aerial threat in Houston too, recording 245 yards on 38 receptions. The Giants are looking likely to swap to a more multifaceted role approach to the run game, and it will probably work similarly to his time at the Texans, where he was lead in the backfield along with Dameon Pierce. And then obviously with Daniel Jones in recovery from his ACL surgery, the Giants were always likely to add an insurance policy into the quarterback room, and it was even hinted this could be through both free agency and the draft. We've added one in free agency, and it's ex-Seahawk and Bronco Drew Lock, who's agreed a 1-year, $5 million fully guaranteed deal. He was drafted in the 2nd round of the 2019 draft by the Broncos, and during his 3 years with the team appeared in 24 games with 21 starts. Majority of those came in 2020 when he played in 13 games, thrown for just shy of 3,000 yards with a completion percentage of 57.3%, 16 touchdowns, 15 picks, and 8 fumbles, which is a lot for a quarterback. Then, as part of the mammoth Russell Wilson trade, look how that turned out. Look was sent to Seattle while Wilson went the other way to Denver. Last season, he spent the majority of the time backing up Geno Smith of the Seahawks, only appearing in 4 games with 2 starts. During his brief appearances, he did show improvements in his accuracy as it went up to 63.2%, and he threw for 543 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Now, for those that are worried, that this ends the Giants' thought process of taking a quarterback at 6 in the draft. Well, maybe not need to worry too much. Multiple sources on X have confirmed this changes nothing and that everything is still in play for April 25th and the first round of the draft. So 2 additions on the offense there. I've got a question for each of you. So Craig up first. As I mentioned, could this be a move to running back by committee?
Yeah, I think that's the way that the Giants will likely go. Eric Gray was obviously drafted last year at a higher position than you could probably say you were going to cut him this early. I think it was the 3rd round, if you guys can remember correctly, 3rd round that we picked up Gray, or was it a bit later than that? 5th
or 5th round, something like
that. It was around that time. It was. I thought it was a day 2 pick, but could be wrong. But yeah, so Eric Gray's there. Obviously, we still got Gary Brightwell, who, spoilers, I don't think will be there for much longer. Corbin is obviously still there. We've still got the draft. There are plenty of times, even when we've been throwing our mock drafts that we seem to do almost on a daily basis now, into the group chat. All of us have somehow wrangled a running back in there at some point. So we don't feel like Devin Singletary is the be-all, end-all in the same way that we don't feel like Drew Lock is the be-all, end-all at quarterback. You know, it's still open in the draft.
Yeah. Eric Gray was selected in the 5th round, 172nd overall. Just for
there we go. Shane was right. Shane,
do you think this is the last that both of these positions get upgraded this year, or do you think there's any more movement?
I hope there's another addition to both rooms, in all honesty. That was if there are. Yeah, that's my short answer, because I really like that. That feels like it could be an episode for itself, especially the QB one. But yeah, you know, I'd like to think we'll address a running back of some sort in the draft. Obviously, me and Kev went through our running back rankings a few weeks ago, and we both says, like, you know, whilst there's no top tier running back, and obviously we had Monty on as well. Whilst there's no top tier running back, there's quite a few sneaky day three guys that you could easily draft that will bring something to the table that we don't have already at the moment.
Nice. Yeah, I find it highly unlikely that we don't bring in another running back, or maybe even quarterback as well, before the season starts. Kev, you and Craig chose Drew Lock in your Fix the Giants piece. Well done. What made you go for him?
A few things, really. I mean, you know, he's been a starter in the league, so he has that experience behind him. You know, he's been a backup now for a little bit, so he knows his role coming into this season's $5 million 1 year, backing up. Dear Daniel Jones, God, I've forgotten about him already. Jesus, Daniel Jones, you know. But you know, Daniel Jones is still coming back from injury, so he will. We still needed someone, a serviceable quarterback, in there to take you know, first team reps. You know, as we're starting the preseason, he does have a bit of a gunslinger mentality. You know, not unlike Josh Allen. So you know, you can kind of see why the coaching staff sort of like lean towards him, and his durability as well. I mean, a lot of these signings have been because these players are extremely durable, and you know, you say what's the best ability is availability, and he's proved that he can stay healthy throughout his career. So just, you know, ticks a lot of boxes. You know, he does put the ball in harm's way a bit, but you know, we want to see the ball pushed down the field sometimes, and that's the danger. But yeah, I mean, I quite like the fit to be before we signed him, and I think it's a very good fit now as well.
So just before we carry on, there's been a few questions coming through in the comments, so thank you to everyone who's putting those in. But there's kind of two here, 3 comments, but 2 questions. So Shane, I'll throw this one across to you first. So Jack on X, Jack Redmond, has said, does the contract seem a little high for Singletary to use? It was my first thought when I saw it. So if we bring Singletary's one back up there, 3 years, 16.5 million, 9.5 guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than I probably would have paid. I mean, I kind of think maybe 12 mil was his ceiling, maybe 13 over 3 years. So it's a little bit more than what I would personally have liked to have paid. It was kind of beg the question as maybe it's not going to be a committee potentially, because it's not serious money, but it's decent money for someone to just be in a committee. So kind of, is it going to be a case of you say to Devin Singletary, start of the year, right then, it's yours to lose this job. Like if you're not good enough, we are going to go to a running back by committee. I mean, I do like Devin Singletary. I think he's a good back. I think he's been, pretty productive considering the lack of attempts he's had realistically, especially in Buffalo. Obviously, Buffalo were never a run first team. So I'm a bit excited to see what he can do. But yeah, it's more than I would have liked to have seen us pay.
Cool. And then Kev, I'll come to you next, and Dan, obviously, if you jump in straight after Kev. So, pretty much 15 minutes after we went live, Steve popped this into the chat saying, interested to hear your thoughts on where DeVito could stand with Locke coming in, potentially a QB being drafted. And Kieran has also said, don't think we'll have much Tommy Cutler's crack this year with the arrival of Locke. Do you agree with that? Where do you see sort of Tommy Cutler's finishing on the roster this time?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But just to talk about Singletary's contract quickly, his deal's actually it's basically an out after 2. I mean, his cap number this year is 3.75, next year is 6.25, and then year 3 is 6.5. But he only carries 1.25 dead money in the 3rd year, so you'd see a 5.25. So it's a very well structured contract, very easy to go out after 2 years. Just another really good contract by Joe Sheehan. But back to Tommy DeVito. I mean, it's a very interesting one. I mean, so if you bring with Daniel Jones's injury history, right? If we draft a QB at 6, say JJ McCarthy, just for argument's sake, okay? If we draft JJ McCarthy, right, he needs to sit a year. For all the things we like about his game, me and Sheehan don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. A quarterback you take in the top 10 in this year's draft, because he needs to add to his game. He needs to add to his physique, and he needs to sit a year. So you wouldn't want him to start straight away to come in. Now, Daniel Jones is the week 1 starter at the moment. But with his injury history, you need backup, and that's what Drew Lock is. Drew Lock is essentially that. You will carry 3 quarterbacks this year. That's absolutely fine. So where I see Tommy DeVito is, ideally, I'd like him to go back in the practice squad, to sit for another year and learn in this organization, learn this playbook, learn what it's like to be a pro again with this organization on the practice squad. And then in theory, you think about it, we were saying that he could be a high-end backup in this league, is where his ceiling is. His absolute ceiling is a decent backup in this league. I can't see him being an actual starter. So ideally for me, and if you're asking me what I would want, I can't see this happening, but this is what I would want, is for us to draft someone who they believe in within the top 10, as in 6 or higher, who they believe in, who could sit for a year while Daniel Jones goes out there and plays, as well as he can, and given the situation with Drew Lock as his backup. And then when it comes to next year, with Tommy DeVito sitting on the practice squad learning from these QBs, that you would then have in 2025 your fresh starter on a rookie contract that Dable and Sheehan's picked, and then you'd have Tommy DeVito as a seasoned backup then with 2 years experience in the league and knowing this offense would be my ideal situation. Now, I think with all the hype around him, I think you won't be able to sneak him on the practice squad. I think someone might try and get him onto their full active roster. But it will be an interesting one to see. So I think he has to be in the camp anyway, because we need the arm talent or arm bodies to be able to throw in practice. And like I said, Daniel Jones is a little bit off that yet. So he will be there. But when it comes to 90-man cuts, I think we'll try and sneak him on the practice squad, and it's just whether someone will try and put him on their active roster. their 53-man roster. And that's no given either, even with all the hype.
No, I mean, the fact that we at the moment we've got 3 quarterbacks on the books. Yeah, I'm guessing neither of you see Daniel Jones as a long-term option. But with DeVito, obviously there was a lot of hype there, but in all honesty, I can't see him being anything but at the very most the third string quarterback this year. I'll be surprised. I'm in two minds what we do in the draft, but I won't go into too much detail. But I think DeVito will either be there as the third string quarterback or he'll be on another team. Is my honest opinion. I don't think he clears the practice squad. I think another team would pick him up. And going back to the question about Singletary, I think it's a sensible contract. 16.5 million over 3 years isn't a huge amount of money to pay a running back, and it's well structured, like you said, Kev. So I kind of like what Joe Shane's done with that. Would I've paid him that much? I think we said it was going back a few weeks, said it like projected around $5 million a year. So it's not much over that. So it's not a bad contract. I can't really complain too much. Maybe a little bit rich, but I'm fine with it. I'm happy with it. So yeah, thanks for the questions, though, guys. Really appreciate it. Now that we've got through everything we've bought into the team, have we got everyone through bought into the team? No, there's a few more, isn't there? Shane, who's up next?
Yeah, so obviously we mentioned losing McKinney earlier on at the start of the episode. So as a result, we have brought in Jalen Mills on a 1-year deal. Don't know if the Giants have got some Marvel thing going on. They've done Marvel stuff in the past with Spiderman, Green Goblin, I believe Mills is called. So God knows when Doc Ock's rocking up. But Mills, he's 29. He's an experienced, versatile player who can line up at slot corner, outside and safety. And he's going to offer the Giants plenty of flexibility and that veteran presence that we're kind of missing now. Obviously, look at who else is at safety. Pinnock, not been in the league that long, I want to say. I feel like he's really old. Obviously, Dane Belton and Javarius Owens kind of been drafted in the last couple of years. Mills began his career with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2016. He moved to New England in 2019 and has started 34 games for the Patriots over the past 3 seasons, mainly playing as strong safety. In the 2023 season, he played in all 17 games, made 8 starts, recording 45 combined tackles, 3 hurries, 1 quarterback hit, 1 forced fumble, and 1 pass breakup. His 84-point run defense grade was the highest of his career, and he's likely a big reason as to why the Giants has brought him in. Obviously, run defense is something we've kind of struggled with, and considering we're going to be playing him twice a year, it might be a little bit of a struggle again as well. And then we also agreed terms with free agent wide receiver and return specialist Isaiah McKenzie, as confirmed by his representation Sports Trust Advisors. He was originally a 5th round draft pick with the Broncos back in 2017, and he showcased his versatility over his career with 165 receptions for 1,522 receiving yards, 297 rushing yards, 2,043 total return yards, and a total of 17 touchdowns. This is another player who's got previous ties to Brian Daboll that did spend time together between 2018 and 2021. And McKenzie's best year actually came in 2020 with Daboll, as he caught 33 of 36 passes for 296 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Yes, and we brought in some other attacking options. I use that word very, very loosely. I only say it because they're both tight ends. They might not be attacking options, though. But, with Darren Waller's retirement rumors still in full swing, the Giants have brought in Jack Stoll and Chris Manhertz. What a name. And a returning player that we'll talk about in a little bit. But let's focus on the newbies. So we have 26-year-old Jack Stoll, an undrafted free agent in 2021. He spent 3 years in Philly before switching over to the Giants this year. He has 26 starts and 50 career games with 21 catches and 188 yards. He's predominantly been used as a blocking tight end in run packages, and according to run blocking PFF grades, he has 58.2 in 21, 56.6 in 22, and 65.6 this past year in 2023. And then we have the Bronx native Manhertz. He's an 8-year veteran. He spent time with the Saints, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Broncos, all on his way to playing for the Giants now. He has 53 starts with 120 he had 53 starts in 120 with 26 receptions, 271 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, he's a run blocker with 1,600 of his. With 1,674 of his 2,733 career snaps being in the run game, with career average of 63.2 run block. Now, I don't expect these signings to have anything to do with whether Waller retires or not. They're very, very different players to Waller. But if Waller does retire, having these players in would free up Daniel Bellinger to be more of an all-round tight end that we believe he can be and we believe he should be in this offense. So, Craig, any more additions?
Yeah, finally, on the external signings, the Giants added some more depth on that offensive line with a couple of what I'm going to call insurance policy veterans. Stinnie, Aaron Stinnie, that is, has 12 starts in 31 games, spent a year with the Titans before moving to Tampa. He was a starting member of the Super Bowl winning team that beat the Chiefs a few years ago, and last season he played a career-high 13 times for the Bucs, only allowing 2 sacks. And Austin Schlottmann, which has a very German sound to it, has 14 starts in 67 games with the Broncos and Vikings. He was an undrafted free agent in 2018, has played at right guard and left guard early in his career, but has spent most of his time at centre in the last 2 years and has never allowed more than 1 sack in a season when he has been called upon. Probably looking at the depth insurance policy there for JMS, somebody that we are going to need, and let's hope that it works out better than JC Hassenauer, who did not make it through training camp last year.
Schlottmann.
Great name.
Great name, that, isn't it?
Should
Great
be a
name.
wide receiver.
He's
I mean,
a
come on, I
Schlottmann.
quite like Manhertz as well.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, there's definitely some very sort of Germanic names coming in here, isn't there? Stoll, Manhertz, Stinnie, Schlottmann. Yeah, love him. Like it. All right, we have gone through everyone that's been brought in.
Hold on 2 seconds.
What?
Steve said, Vikings mate of mine about Schlottmann. He's a body. That's about it. Riveting endorsement. Thanks for that, Steve.
I mean, that's what we need on the offensive line, right? We need bodies on the offensive line. I like that. Insurance is definitely what we've brought them in for. But yeah, thanks for that, Steve. We have got through everyone we brought in from external teams. Now we're going to look at who we've re-signed. First up, Gunner. Not surprised we brought him back. It was sort of a little bit of a revelation when he came into the team last year. Versatile wide receiver and returner. He's back with the team after he brought stability to the return game in 2023. We're all massive fans of the move, especially as it reflects sort of the team's commitment to addressing that punt return position, which had been pretty horrific until he arrived last season. He returned 23 punts for 282 yards and that beautiful long touchdown in Week 17 against the Rams. Next up, Casey Kreiter, friend of the pod, who was the first Giants re-sign. He'll get a 5th season with the team since his arrival prior to the 2020 season. He's appeared in all 37 games and is coming off the back of an event-free season that saw a record career high in tackles. And then in a move that nobody saw coming, or not very few people saw coming, we've re-signed inside linebacker Carter Coughlin to a 1-year deal, despite him posting what seemed to be a farewell statement on social media just after the end of the 2023 season. So that was a little bit of a surprise to see him come back. Originally drafted in the 7th round in 2020, he was out of the University of Minnesota. He's contributed in 55 games over his first 4 seasons, recording 41 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery. But he's excelled primarily on special teams, leading the team in snaps and tackles on special teams in the last 2 seasons in total. Shane, who else is sticking around?
Yeah, so to almost round things out completely, the Giants have re-signed Benton Whitley, Lawrence Cage, and Nick McLeod. McLeod was a restricted free agent. He was given a 1 year, $2.99 million deal and adds some much needed depth to the cornerback room. As alluded to by Kev earlier as well, the other tight end back is Cage. He appeared in 11 games last season with 4 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown. And then finally, Whitley had a fumble recovery and a pass deflection in 3 games last season. He's also back.
And then we had the shocking news just before we came on the pod. A massive return for big play Darnay Holmes, who has returned to the Giants on a 1-year deal. He's appeared in 16 games in 2023, predominantly on special teams, but filling in at corner on over 100 snaps. Drafted in the 4th round out of UCLA in 2020, he returns to New York for his 5th season, adding much needed depth in the secondary and on special teams. And with the Giants not really, looking at any veteran cornerbacks, I guess it's probably just an insurance policy depending on the White visit that's due to happen tomorrow, I believe that is, Tre'Davious White. I think, Kev, you posted that in the chat earlier today or yesterday. So, to be honest, the depth at slot cornerback is not great. Flott is pretty much the only one that's there. So, as much as we might take the mickey out of big play Darnay for his tendency for penalties and sideline massages that go viral, he's a body that's needed at the moment.
Yeah, very much so.
Did you all forget about the sideline massage?
Oh no. When I loaded up Twitter earlier, or X or whatever you want to call it, the first tweet I came across was the fact that we'd re-signed Darnay Holmes, and there is the video of him receiving a massage on the sideline. So, yeah, not surprised. But I mean, there's got to be better options out there than Darnay Holmes, but it's adding that depth, that sort of insurance to that position where we don't really have much in the way of depth at the moment. So, and he's done fairly well on special teams over the last couple of seasons. I know Holty, we re-signed him. What's going on with that? There's got to be better options out there, but for now, he's back with the team. So there we go. Out of those 7 that we've re-signed, I think there's probably only going to be a couple that really sort of have much of an impact in 2024. But who out of those 7 do you think will have the biggest impact, Kev?
Who out of those 7 do I think will have the biggest impact? I think McLeod. I like this re-signing of him. I think he's one of those players that can play. He started snaps. He started games on the outside cornerback and played okay. But he really excels sort of in closer to the action in this more sort of like nickel position, safety position. I think there's a potential to be a starter in this league. But he'll definitely contribute in stepping in for people. But also he is an absolute demon in the special teams. So very glad to see him back. Oh, and he went to Notre Dame.
got another Homer pick there. Shane, who's the biggest impact out of those 7?
Before I answer this question, are one of you guys eyeing up taking Gunner? Because if you am, I've got a different person I was going to take.
Yeah, I'll lie up Gunner just because I'm scouting through and I'm intrigued to know who you're going to take as the secondary now. So I'll be selfish.
Yeah, so I'm going to go for Carter Coughlin. Just for his special team play more than anything else. I think obviously him and Cam Brown, they didn't add much to the roster in terms of defensive starters, but they were 2 very good special teams players. And I'm pleased that we've brought at least one of them back. I just think that special teams can sometimes be overlooked. And I know it's not going to win. It's not going to win your games as such. You've got your offense and your defense, and that's what you expect to win games. But special teams set you up to win games. So I'll just go someone like a bit of a dark horse, and I'll go for Carter Coughlin.
Yeah, I mean, Gunner was probably going to be my pick. So, looking at that, it does continue that kind of special teams focus. And there are 3 phases to the game. and we've neglected one phase for way too long, way too long. We've got a new coordinator now, so Thomas McGee, he's gone. I think it will be a big improvement, hopefully, this season, and let's hope that it's not special teams that's at fault for the decimation of the Giants' 2024 season early on in week 1.
Yeah, let's hope not.
I actually have a follow-up question.
Go on.
Thoughts for the three of you on the fact that the Giants have not re-signed Isaiah Hodgins? Go on, Dan.
I am kind of surprised we haven't re-signed Isaiah Hodgins, in all honesty. I think when he came in at the back end of 22, he was a big target for Daniel Jones. And obviously, last season with our issues at quarterback, I mean, I'm not surprised he didn't get a huge amount of targets last season, but he's a decent receiver. So I'm quite surprised we haven't brought him back as of yet. Does it speak volumes to what we're looking at potentially going to do in the draft? Maybe. But he's a decent receiver, so yeah, I'm kind of surprised he's not back.
Shane?
I mean, I think I'm just going to put it down to the fact that it's a cost issue. Maybe we've spoke to him and sort of says about taking a cheaper deal. He's turned around and said, not something I'm looking to do, kind of thing. And I suppose when you look at, obviously we brought, because I think it was him and Nick McLeod that were is it untenured or some untenured free agents or something like that?
Restricted free agents. So I think the tender on that, both of those deals was $3 million.
Yeah, and I think it's a case of, like, money's a little bit tight. And in my personal opinion, what would I rather have brought back, a cornerback or a wide receiver? I'd have to go cornerback, in all honesty. I think that there's holes at both, but there's a gaping hole at cornerback. And you're going to imagine we're going to look at taking a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds anyway. So that's how we'd be replacing Hodgins. I like him. I'd be happy if he came back on a cheaper contract. But if it was down to him or McLeod at $3 million a year, I think they've made the right decision.
I'll let you continue, Kev.
Yeah, so I was surprised, but not overly shocked. I mean, $3 million, they probably said, okay, it's a bit rich for us. Do you want to come back on a 2-year deal, $4 million over 2 years type thing? He probably said, no, I want to test the market. And they've let him go out and test the market. And so could he come back? I mean, just looking at the wide receiver core now, there's no depth there, but you'd have to say Slayton's in front of him, Robinson's in front of him, Hyatt's in front of him. Whoever we draft at round 1 or round 2 is going to be in front of him. And maybe he didn't want to be like a 5th receiver. Maybe he wanted to try and get himself into number 2, number 3 position. So, fair play to him. Would I have him back? Of course I would, because I think he's a very, very solid player. And I think he was hindered by the QB injury, offensive line play last year, just like a lot of players were.
Kev, I genuinely thought you were going to say who we take at receiver at 6 then.
Yeah. Well, that's who we're going receiver, lads. Daniel Jones, QB number 1.
Spoiler. Maybe.
Good job, Shane's on mute.
It's very true. But no, yeah, I think overall that the players we brought back have I'm not surprised. The only one that sort of did surprise me a bit was Darnay Holmes. But overall, not too bad. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for this evening. We will be back next Wednesday, same time, same place, as we return to looking at this year's top draft prospects, this time focusing on the defensive line. Plus, we'll reveal our plans for draft night on April 25th. And trust us, it's going to be a big one, so make sure you tune in for that. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
No, just, it was good kind of getting everything out the way that's kind of happened over the last week. Hopefully there's going to be some players or one particular player that we will never speak about anytime soon. Dan, just want to say, been brilliant having you on as a guest tonight, and hopefully you can come back for a future episode.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, it's been brilliant to get all four of us back again. Really, really enjoyed that podcast. It does kind of feel like we've kind of got some business out of the way, and now it's like fun time. Now we crack on with more draft stuff, talk about the old player that might come in, and really start to wonder where we will be post draft and what this team will look like. So good. Looking forward to the off season. Let's get it.
Yeah, massive thank you to everyone who's got involved in the comments. A couple of new faces as well tonight in Jack, who followed us along on X, and also Cole, who followed on X. It's good to see that the sort of Twitterverse is starting to pick up on these live streams. Obviously, feel free to carry on Twitter or get yourself across to YouTube and get involved on there. Almost the end of March, giving us T-minus 1 month until we all meet up again face to face, and the next biggest thing after free agency.
Yeah, man, not long. It'll be here before we know it. Thanks for having me on this evening, guys. It's been nice to be a guest. I'm joking. It's good to be back. Been a great episode. Enjoy getting back into the swing of it. I will be back in next week, so never you worry about that. As I said at the top as well, check out all of our social platforms and our merch store by following the links in the description. Give this episode a like and a share on your platform of choice. It is great to be back. Obviously, I had a month off. Now I'm back in, ready for the ramp up to the draft. Judas, you're dead to me. My thanks as ever go to Shane, to Kev, and to Craig for joining me, to the viewers and listeners for tuning in. We're signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.